Welcome to the show. It's me, Chad, and I'm flying solo tonight. Matt had some things he needed to take care of, but that's okay because we have an awesome guest and we're going to have an awesome discussion. Uh, we have Blake Northcott, who is currently writing the upcoming, I think, Barbarella. I don't think it's launched yet. It launches next month.
Yes, October 2nd.
Okay, so all right. So, well, before we get into chatting about Barbarella, tell me a little bit about yourself, both as a comic book reader and as you in the professional comic book industry.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you again for having me on the show. I am really excited to be here. And I think it's so wonderful that we have this space to talk about comics together. And I'm very excited, yep, to dig into Barbarella. But for anyone, that doesn't know my backstory, I guess I'm like, how far should I go back here? I'm going to tell you, I guess, the story about how I got broke into comics because this is kind of a fun
Okay.
story I haven't really shared, and it's really something that is a little bit different. So around 2012, I'd already written a couple of novels, and they were doing well on like Amazon. And I was still working full time though as an insurance underwriter, and I was writing articles on the side for CBR and a couple of other properties, but I wasn't really like in comics. I was on the
Mhm.
periphery of it. And that was when I started chatting with Mark Miller on Twitter. So he needed an editor for his back pages that he was putting out his comics at the time. It was, like Jupiter's Legacy and Chrononaut,
Yep.
of course, all these kick-ass, all these incredible properties. So he asked if I would be an editor in the back pages and also do interviews with people and kind of set up the editorial content and look for fan art. So I was more than happy to do that. I thought this is great. And I think it's where people might have recognized my face because there's a little picture in the corner of Blake. So I think that's where some people first saw me. And I ended up getting that job and getting to work a couple of conventions, but I still was at the point where I needed to network. And the one celebrity sort of tie-in I had at the time was a man who followed me named Ray Plass. He had DM'd me and told me he knew me from Mark's Comics, and his son was starring in the Kick-Ass movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This guy follows me. I checked his social media profile and I realized that his son is Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who played Red Mist in the movie, and he's also what we kind of know him best for was the role of McLovin in Superbad. So I was feeling kind of important then. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This guy follows me, and that was back in like 2014. So at that point, I knew Mark Miller and McLovin's dad. So I was cred is building here. And then the Kick-Ass movie for Kick-Ass 2 came out. And I was working with Mark at that time, and they were having this wild premiere party in San Diego at the San Diego Comic-Con. And I was in Toronto. So, I didn't even think about going because it's so far for me being in Canada, all the way on the other coast. But Mark casually threw out and said, it's too bad that you're not here because if you were in San Diego, I mean, I'd get you into the party. I have a ticket here with your name. And I was like, this is insane, right? So I made the craziest decision because he told me like 2 days before the party. So I
Mhm.
do this on 2 days' notice. I'm going to fly out there. And that was my first time ever in San Diego. And I went to this incredible event that took up like an entire city block. There were huge scaffolding that was set up to do like stunts. Like they had a man who was literally lit on fire on the scaffolding. The bar was a shark tank. This was in the
Oh,
party.
nice.
I'd never seen anything like this. This was my first ever time being surrounded by this type of madness. And I got to meet people at the party, which was wonderful. And obviously, the first thing I did was completely embarrass myself because I was with Mark and, I asked, there was someone standing there and I said, would you mind like taking a picture of us? And he looked a little shocked that I wanted him to take the picture. And then I found out after that I had asked John Romita Sr. to take the picture. Because it was so dark, I didn't know it was him, and I felt completely embarrassed. So
Mhm.
the rest of the night, I just had some red mist drinks that they were making at the party, and got to, mingle in the VIP area, which was really cool because there's actually a velvet, like a red velvet rope. You hear about that. That was there. And I approached, and the bouncer was like, nope, you don't have the gold wristband. Sorry, you can't get in here. So that was my reality check moment. And I was like, okay, it's time to go. But then I heard someone calling my name, and I looked over, and it was Ray, who's McLevin, Christopher Mintz-Plass's dad, was calling me over, and he's like, oh, here, I've got the special gold band. You can come back into the VIP lounge. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's when, I'm standing next to Nathan Fillion. And, on the other side was Julie Benz. And I just could not get over this. This was like the golden ticket. Like I felt like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when they win the golden ticket and he gets to see everything kind of up close. That's what that was for me. That was my, that was kind of the, like, I've made it into comics. This is really happening. So that's a little story I was just thinking about. That was kind of funny about my break into comics. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not. But sorry, I just went on a
Yeah,
tangent.
no, that's fine. Now, did you read comics growing up? Did you would or do you
Yeah,
remember which ones those were? And
yeah. So back in, I would say in the 90s, I loved a lot of Image comics. I had
didn't we all?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot. I had a boyfriend at the time who was very into comics. So when I would go and
Mhm.
visit him, it was like comics everywhere and, trying to like share interests and stuff. So he would say, oh, I think you'd like this one. And I remember him specifically giving me like a Danger Girls one by J. Scott Campbell. I think it was the first one that I ever read, like cover to cover. And then I really kind of took a lapse for a couple years as I got into other things. And I would say more until the late 2000s is when I got back into comics. And I always loved more of the independent
Sure.
type of comics. I remember reading a lot of Chew by John Layman. I really loved that. It was really kind of weird and different and subversive. And I thought, this is so cool. I read Kick-Ass for the first time, and my mind was really blown away by that because it was so creative, so out of the box. I just thought this was almost meta in a way I had never seen before. It really was those type of comics that helped draw me back into the medium around that time.
Nice. And if anybody's watching and they have a question or comment, just type it in the chat, and we'll see if we can get it answered for you. So, tell me a little bit about the Barbarella. I mean, I know the Barbarella, is based off the Jane Fonda movie from 1968, I believe.
Yeah, so
So where does this series pick up? Is it tied into the upcoming, redo or remake?
originally, yeah, Jean-Claude Forest is the original French writer and artist who worked on it, and we obviously all remember the Jane Fonda movie that was so popular in 1968, and I think that was really important in terms of pop culture, iconography, and how it left such a huge impact, not just for, film, but mostly when I think back, and I think most people recognize like the music element with one of the main villains we had in that movie was Duran Duran. And here now, after we have the band who was so influenced by the movie, they named their band Duran Duran, which became obviously a huge, influence in music. We had the costume designs, which were incredible. The way that they looked at this retro futurism aspect, which was very prolific at the time amongst a lot of European films. So having that style influence in all of the costumes, I think for fashion, it just became a huge influence in the 60s and 70s. And there's an iconic poster of Jane Fonda wearing this metallic silver dress, which was inspired by Paco Rabanne. And I read that Jean-Paul Gaultier was so influenced by the fashion of that movie that it influenced his decision when he made all of the costumes for The Fifth Element, which is one of my favorite movies. So I was like blown away to hear that. Like, it's almost like through osmosis that we have learned a lot about, how much of an impact that the Barbarella character has carried through time. And I love that aspect of her. She is just such an icon. And so she is the one that's, had this everlasting sort of effect through sci-fi. She's got this kind of dreamy dreamscape quality to the narrative that goes around her, which I always thought was really interesting. It's very whimsical, and she's also very thoughtful, and she has a sexuality that she's not afraid to play with and to show in different scenarios, which I love. She's so confident. So these are all, a lot of her characteristics and traits that we get to play with in the series. But yes, it's with Dynamite Comics, and they are putting out the new run. So it's myself and Anna Morozova, who is the incredible artist working on it. And I've had a great time working with her. She is absolutely amazing. And her style is this very effortless, kind of graceful. She has so much motion that she incorporates into her panels. And I'm just so excited for everyone to see it. Yeah, it's been a great experience collaborating with her and with Dynamite.
So without giving too much away, because definitely people will want to read it to find out, what is the premise for the book that you're writing? And it's a limited series or?
So yeah, right now I believe it's scheduled or slated for 6 issues, but they
Mhm.
said there's potential for it to be ongoing, but we'll just see. Okay, Barbarella has been through a lot in her previous adventures. And so she decides to take her sidekick Vix on a vacation on a mysterious pleasure planet known as Planet V. But she soon discovers that the world is being used mostly for entertainment, where the visitors are forced to perform for the entire galaxy to watch. So we have a subplot where there are some series regulars who come back. There's lots of Easter eggs for people who followed her character previously. And but I don't want to give away too much, but that's the
Sure.
general idea of the story right now.
Now, when you were, preparing for the writing, did you watch the movie, or how did you prepare to get into that frame of mind that you needed to be to, enter Barbarella's world?
Right. Yeah, I did. I tend to do research obviously before I take on any character, and especially one as iconic as Barbarella. When you're doing someone else's IP or it's something that's been around for so many years, you want to be mindful of that. And I always am very careful not to tread over any of the main characteristics of that character. We want to make sure that it's true to the source material. But at the same time, you want to leave a little bit of your own touch on the story. And I wanted to make sure that the fans and anyone who is a fan of Barbarella would want to come along on our journey. And I think the good thing is right now we're having a great time, and the story is at a great place for people to jump on who might not know a lot about her backstory. It's a great jumping on point to come in and just experience the adventure and come along for the ride. So yeah, and what I was sorry, I missed the beginning part of your question there. Yeah, I did get to read. What I did was I read the original comics, but they had been translated into English. So I do
Mhm.
understand some French, but I wanted to just make sure that I got the correct, just that nothing went over my head, and that I was making sure to get the every little bit out of it that I could. So I read the English
Hmm.
translation, and then I also got to watch some videos. I did watch some interviews that Jane Fonda had actually done talking about the role. Read some interviews on what had been said in the media, at the time when it came out, the influences that the director felt, or that the people who worked on the movie felt were important, and then also getting obviously to watch the film. So yeah, I did that type of research. And the good thing too is that we're working as a team, and the collaboration has been amazing with Dynamite. So we have our editor, Matt Idelson, who is incredible, and he is just a huge wealth of information, and he's great to work with. And between him and Anna, I mean, she's been fabulous. So it's been a really wonderful experience.
Tell me a little bit more about the work with Anna, because I'm always interested in the writer artist, relationship and how you guys kind of work together,
Yeah.
so, work out any problems that may arise, or how, if, if your writing is how it translates to her, doing the art side of it.
Yeah. So Anna and I have actually been working on this for, I would say, just over a year, maybe almost a year and a half now. It's been a long time. A lot of things happen in publishing kind of behind the scenes.
Hmm.
It's not a quick journey to get a comic series out. So we've been working together, and she is this super talented European artist. And she just worked on Judge Dredd with 2000 AD, and I am blown away just by her artwork. Like I mentioned before, she has such a graceful element to her designs, and her own style is just so unique looking. It's very fluid in the movements, and the way it kind of glides from panel to panel. I'm just like really blown away by her art, and it comes back so precise. Like usually I'm used to getting artwork back from the panels that look a little rough, and they're going to be worked out later, and that's just what I'm used to seeing. But with Anna, she sends back these incredibly detailed, completely polished looking panels. So it's been really impressive to see that come in, and we've had a great time together. I feel like it's really wonderful when you feel that synergy with the artist.
Hmm.
And, a lot of the times when I'm writing something into this script, there was one instance I remember where I'm just like, she is so good at doing different kind of detailed character designs and such. So I said, I'm going to write part of the script where you can put Barbarella in different outfits.
Hmm.
I won't give it away what happens, but she does an
Sure.
incredible job of coming up with all these different outfits. And it's really fun to get to see Barbarella in these different outfits, because we usually see her in the same kind of the same one that's been very well, it's well recognized. So I thought that would be a lot of fun for her, and she loved it. She did such a great job. And even there's another instance where we had to come up with an idea for a new spaceship. And I just wrote in the script, I think something like, Anna, this has to be a spaceship that can fit, 4 people or whoever that was in I forget, I think it was 4 of them. So I said, anything you come up with, I think will be amazing, and you'll knock it out of the park. And she did. She came back with this incredible new design for a spaceship. So that's the fun part of what we get to do in this type of, a sci-fi fantasy element, is that you're dealing with no limitations in terms of an existing world that has been built that we have to maintain. Everything has to look the same, because she's going to different planets and different universes, and we can just create a lot of things that are in our imagination, and we can just go a little crazy. And the way Dynamite has been so wonderful about letting us to have that freedom of expression has been really wonderful.
Now, are there any characters besides Barbarella that you have kind of became attached to, or when you started, they were just kind of like a secondary character, but the more you got into, writing them, that you kind of got more attached to them, I guess is the word.
Yeah, well, while we've been working on the Barbarella series, her sidekick, Vix, who's actually another alien race, I've really enjoyed getting the chance to write this character as well. It's nothing that I've ever done before. It's very outside of the box. Um, they, even the way they speak and the way they're presented, it's all very quirky and unusual, and you can really have a lot of fun with it. Um, and I don't know if it's just sometimes where when I get to writing a character, I find writing the villain almost becomes more fun sometimes than the actual character. And this is another instance where I'm having a great time writing the villain. Um, and you can, when you're allowed to just go kind of crazy in just any direction, I feel like your intuitive nature gets to kind of have fun playing with different elements. And even though we want her to be grounded and on her hero's journey, which is happening throughout the story, we want it to be also an adventure where people can come along for the ride, and it's fun. And I wanted it,
Hmm.
that was the main goal. And we talked about what we wanted as one of the goals for the series was, they've tried a lot of different things with Barbarella over the years, but they wanted this to be a little bit closer to the original material, and in terms of it being, the fun, sexy vibe, and she's on her whimsical type of adventure, and people could really jump on board and be a part of the universe, an immersive um, element to it. And, like you said, the film being kind of released, not released, I should say, announced at the same time as the book was really interesting to see in the media how this was interpreted and reported on, which drew a lot of attention because I believe it was MSN picked up the story of the comic, and they started making references to Sydney Sweeney, who has been tapped to play the main character Barbarella, and she's also going to produce the film, which is with Sony. So that was really interesting to see how, I think there was a little bit of maybe speculation about, is this comic coming out now because the movie has been announced? So they were trying to see if that was one of the elements. And I think maybe also because Sydney Sweeney and I share the same representation at Paradigm, our agency is the same. So I'm not sure if that's part of the reason why, but having that in the media was really interesting to see how people were interested in it more and asking questions and wanted to know more about it. So I'm hoping, there is no plan, as far as I know, to draw from the comic for the film, but you don't know. I can't say never. So if you see
Yes.
something in the film that's similar, that would be great.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You wrote some Catwoman, right?
Yes, I did. And that was wonderful.
What kind of can you talk about maybe any differences between writing Catwoman and Barbarella because they're both kind of strong females and
Oh, yes. Catwoman was another iconic, strong female lead. Obviously, that she's been around for 80 years. That was, I would say, a little bit daunting to do because the fans are so invested in her. And the what I had to do was we had two fill-in issues that we had to do between when one of the story arcs was ending and a new writer was coming in to take over. So it was a little bit, our hands were a little bit tied in terms of how far we were able to take the story because they had certain
Mhm.
things they didn't want us to bring up or to talk about. So, but the most fun definitely was getting to play with her character. She's I love that she's a little bit ambiguous in terms of she's never really been a villain, but she's also never really, you know, um,
Good.
she's not fully good, but she's not fully bad. She's somewhere in the middle, and
A
she
little gray.
a little gray area. Yeah, and that's a fun place to play with because there's a lot you can do, and we got to also have an epic villain come back, which was Snowflame. That was actually one of the funniest things that happened. I'm going to tell a little story about that because they were like, we have to bring back a villain that we can ultimately try to kill off in the end, that nobody will really care if they die, right? So we were like, okay, well, let's see if they say we can do Snowflame. So we were shocked when they said yes, brought him back, because his power is that he powers up from snorting cocaine, right? Using cocaine. So we were like, there's no way they're gonna let us do this, but they did. So we started writing the story. It got all the way past the art, past editorial, and it was coming up to the printing time. And all of a sudden we get these flurry of emails saying, oh my gosh, there's a panel that shows, it was a panel that we had in the car where the little door opens and there's a little thing of cocaine there, and he was going to show him using it to power up, because you have to show him powering up, right?
Mhm.
So they're like, no, you can't have him doing any real drugs in this book. This is an impossible thing. And then we thought, oh gosh, they're talking about pulling it off the shelf. And here's my like one time to get to write Catwoman, and I'm so excited for this to come out, and it's coming down to the last minute and the last moment. We were all flipping out because Warner Brothers had their legal department just going crazy about this. So luckily, the artist came to the rescue, Cian Tormey, and he ended up reworking the panels so that it was kind of implied that he used it, but it was off panel. So it didn't
Yeah.
actually show that he was,
Kind of rubbing his nose afterwards.
yeah, kind of one of those like a kind of thing. We all knew what happened, but it wasn't showing it. So I think we even had like the sniff sound effect in the little bubble, so you could imagine what he was doing there. But then it ended up working out, and it came out, and there was so much hype surrounding these two issues. I was so thrilled that we found out after it went to a second printing, because there was so much enthusiasm and sales were great. And I was like, that is so wonderful to hear that people loved it so much. And they were telling me, oh, on eBay, they're going for hundreds of dollars. And, they want new covers with different backgrounds and stuff to printed on like foil and everything. Like, it was just a really cool experience. And I'm just so thrilled that there's so many people who enjoyed it. And I still have people who ask about Snowflame now. And I just think that's hilarious. So yeah, it was a really wonderful, experience. And the fact that people are still invested in the characters and still doing videos to this day, like about Snowflame. And they're asking me, like, do you think that James Gunn is going to put him in his movie or something? Like, now that he's running the DC universe, I'm like, who knows? Stranger things have happened. So that would be great. But it could be something that we might see one day. I don't know.
If given the chance, would you like to kind of go back to the character and do a little more?
I think she's so iconic that, yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely would, for sure. I felt like I really got to wrap my head around her, and time permitting. I mean, right now I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of different projects, but I would definitely love the opportunity. She's a wonderful character.
So, just say somebody, either any company comes to you and says, you can take any of our characters' properties and run wild with it. Who would be your first choice?
Oh my goodness. I've had this question before, and I feel like there's one character I always kind of come back to, and I think that he's so underused and undervalued, and I feel like I watch him and I always think he has so much potential. It's Booster Gold. I'm always thinking like, oh, I could just picture him as like DC's version of Deadpool or something in the right hands. I think he's a character that I would love to sort of take a crack at. But I mean, like you just mentioned, Catwoman, she's so iconic. I love her. I loved writing her, so I would love to do that again. But honestly, right now I'm having a lot of fun, working on Barbarella, and
Sure.
I doing novels and screenwriting. So my hands are very full, and I'm very excited to work on these projects. And I can't wait to, I have things right now that I've been working on for like a year that I can't wait to announce to everyone else. So it's hard when you're kind of bound by these like contract negotiation things.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
just shout it from the rooftops and tell everyone, but
So you kind of led into my next question. When writing comics, how different is it for you for writing, not say novels or screenplays? Do you have to use different muscles of the brain to do that?
oh, definitely. So I started with novels, and I feel like that prose writing will always be my first love. I get to build worlds, and there's a lot of room to play with because there's no limitation on how many words you're writing on a page, and I
Mhm.
just really love that feeling. There's no limitation, and I'm working um, to create my own characters, which is really fun for me, and I love that. And screenwriting I've started, and I'm really enjoying that as well. It's been such a great opportunity, and I feel like there is a great synergy between working in comics and then switching over to work with screenwriting. And comics are, such a great medium. I love being able to collaborate with the artist and the editors and just everybody to put the book together. It's quite different than when you're working on a novel because you're by yourself in the novel situation. It's just you and the computer most of the time. But when you're doing a comic, it's like a team sport where you have to like get everybody's input, and it can be a little bit more slow, I guess, in that one regard, because you have to make sure that everyone is happy with it. It's a blessing, but it's also very challenging sometimes. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say it's more of an evolution of that project. It's from what you start to what you get in the end sometimes can really take a different form because you're going through so many iterations of editing and different passes and all of this. So it's really exciting to get to use all of the different, I call them like the writing toolbox, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has a writer's toolbox, and being able to use the different skills that you need for all of these different types of writing. It is really exciting and definitely flexes those muscles, and it's really fun though to get to the opportunity to do that.
So another two-part question. um, how do you feel that you've grown as a writer up to your work on Barbarella, and what advice would you give a younger you that
Goodness.
you wish you knew that you wish you knew back then that
Right.
you've learned?
That's a great question. I think in the beginning, it's tough to have that feeling of confidence in your own voice. I would say that's something to really work on, and to feel that you understand what the value of your voice is, and the way that you're writing impacts the people, because I feel that like when you're creating work, it's like a two-way street. Like you create the art, and then you're going to have to share it with people, and then they're going to read it and interpret it and how they see it, right? So it's kind of like this two-way street, and I really feel like you do have to have a thick skin when you share art, because some people really get what you're trying to say or do, and somebody else might not. So it's okay whichever way they see it, because they're interpreting it in their own way.
Mhm.
But I think having that thicker skin about it is important when you're being a writer, but also just trying to do your best work, like just always trying to put the best version of whatever you're working on out there is really important, and not to be dissuaded by any negativity. Is a difficult thing to do, but I think it's really important so that you can maintain that feeling of creativity within you, because you want to be able to create the next thing after, right? And I think that's really important. One of the greatest kind of blessings I got in my writing career was I was friends with someone who took over the Joe Kubert School. So I
Hmm.
was lucky that I got to teach a class and help new students who were wanting to get into comics. And that was really challenging on many levels, because when you do things and you're writing every day, you don't really think about why you did that choice or why you switched it. And when you're having to explain to new creatives in the field, like why you're making certain choices, or the best way to maybe get from point A to point B. Um, it was really difficult, and it made me really opened my eyes to what how difficult it is to be a teacher. So I
Hmm.
am giving props to all the teachers out there, because oh my goodness, that was so rewarding but so challenging at the same time, and I really loved it. I still keep in contact with students that I had in the class, like to this day, and it's just really rewarding to see them taking off and doing things for their own projects. And I think that that was something that I would say, if you have a chance to teach in any capacity, that you should do it, because it really is a helpful tool to have in your writer's toolbox.
Yeah, I know we're coming up on your hard out. So, but I wanted to ask, because when I was looking at going through and doing some prep, I saw that you worked on the Evanescence comic book.
Yes.
Um, I mean, and then the time, time we have left, kind of give us like a what how that was, and because
Yeah.
I remember when Evanescence kind of became big. That was my college years, so I'm dating myself.
Yes. Well, I think that, when you can have different forms of art and you enjoy them, like I always loved the music of Evanescence so much. So when I got the opportunity to work with Amy Lee, I thought this is like a dream opportunity, because I just love her so much already. So getting to have that experience of going behind the scenes and how she creates art, and we were going back and forth to what we did was we took a couple of her songs. She wanted us to so it was myself and Abigail Larson who worked on the first book, and she wanted us to come up with a story that reflected the spirit of the song. And we just had a great time working together. She's a really incredible writer, and you don't really think sometimes, like, oh, writing songs, that is also very challenging. And she has in writing music, so she has a unique skill set there, and she is just very uh, quick-witted, and she's so funny, and she has some great ideas. And it was a really fun collaboration, and I was really lucky because she actually came to Toronto, which is where I'm from. She was on tour with Muse last year, and we were done our comic, and she said, do you want to come to the show, and then we could like sign some back?
Yes.
Like, yes. So I got to go to her show and see her live, and then also go backstage after, and that was so crazy, because just to see, she's so down to earth. Like literally, she was in at the bar area. She's like, what do you want to drink? I'll make you a drink. Like, I'm like, is Amy Lee like making me a rum and coke right now? What's happening? Like it was so crazy. So we had a really great time and got to sign together and have our little comic signing. And it was a wonderful experience working with her, for sure.
And again, now you're also an editor of Massive Comics.
Yes, so I got to work with them. I loved working with them. That was mostly last year. And
Hmm.
the team over there, they are so passionate about comics. So I really loved that experience. And we had the opportunity to have Sean Murphy come in, and he had his plot holes come out with them. And then the Zorro Kickstarter campaign came out, which was fabulous. And I got to do, my series with the North Valley Grimoire, and that's been incredible. So I really had a great time working with them. I am moving on into another role fairly shortly that will take me towards more in the novel scope of things, and prose writing, which is where I see my career heading, and towards screenwriting. So, but I had a great time working with them, and yeah, they're great, passionate about comics. I love that.
We are going to be talking with them about Disavowed next week.
Oh, fun. Great.
So, um, so as we kind of wrap up here, if you want to give a pitch for the Barbarella series, any conventions that you are may be attending, and where people can find your stuff on the internet, social media, etc. So,
Great. Yes. So Barbarella is coming to your local comic stores on October 2nd. And there's a whole bunch of different variant covers. There's going to be foil covers. So I think that, it's a really fun adventure with lots of planet hopping and cool tales and characters that are sure to please diehard fans, but also welcome new ones along the way. So I'm very excited about that. Everyone can find me. All of my social media is all over the place. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Imager, Facebook, but I'd say my up to date, everything that I'm doing is on my website, blakenorthcott.com.
mhm.
And all the links are there to find all of my official pages. I will be attending New York Comic Con, and I'll be
Well,
there.
I'll have to stop by and say hi.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think I'm just going to be there on Saturday right now. I'm trying to make my schedule for the weekend, but
Mhm.
I'll be posting that up soon. And yeah, thank you again for having me on, and I really appreciate it.
Well, Barbarella comes out next month, and from Dynamite, and you know we'd love to have you back some other time when you have anything that you would love to promote. And as my co-host likes to say, the world can be a terrible place, but do something nice for somebody, read comics, and just be kind to everybody. And we'll be back. I believe we're back Monday with Joe Casey talking about his Dynamite Johnny Quest. So,
Great.
so, well, thank you very much, and have a great rest of your evening. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks, guys.